Alfonso, selfishly, I hope we don't have to wait 6 more years for the next project from you.
Okay, I hope it doesn't take that long as well. Believe me, but it seems to be the rhythm, unfortunately. I want to change that.
Hello, Blenders, and welcome to a new episode of ReelBlend on this Friday. It is Sean O'Connell, the managing editor at CinemaBlend and one of the co-hosts of the ReelBlend podcast, here to introduce you guys to a very special interview with someone who means a lot to the show. So no full show this week. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in, for supporting the show. If you have been a longtime listener, then you know that one of our main guests, one of our very first main guests, and someone who is important to us, is Alfonso Cuarón. Longtime director of, so Alfonso is important for a couple of different reasons for people who are brushing up on their ReelBlend history. We like to point to the fact that one of the first times that the three of us got together, myself, Jake Hamilton, Kevin McCarthy, the co-host of the show, was up at the Toronto International Film Festival after we had seen a screening of Alfonso's Gravity. We came out of that movie. We were so blown away by what we watched and the technical aspects of that film and just how engrossed we were in the story of Gravity, that we decided we were going to get together and we were going to record a video of us reacting to the movie and show it on CinemaBlend. It's long before the podcast, long before we were even thinking of doing anything together or putting something on video, and we reacted to Gravity. Then fast forward to Awards Blend and ReelBlend, and we kind of said at the initial bit, we're not going to do interviews. We just wanted it to be, hey, we're going to turn the microphones on and talk about movies. But one of the very first people who came around and offered their services as a guest on ReelBlend was Alfonso Cuarón for his deeply personal and, to me, incredibly moving Roma, one of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful film that's available on Netflix and needs to be seen if you haven't seen Alfonso's Roma. So we had Alfonso on. It was a great conversation, and we kind of realized, all right, maybe we do enjoy doing interviews together. And lo and behold, 6 years later, here we are, still doing ReelBlend, still doing plenty of interviews on a weekly basis. Hopefully you guys have caught up with things like Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks most recently as guests on the show. And now we're very happy to have Alfonso Cuarón coming back around. He is promoting the full season of the Apple TV Plus show Disclaimer that he wrote and directed. It stars Cate Blanchett. It stars Kevin Kline. It is a fantastic, fantastic show that you guys need to watch. I want to give you guys a disclaimer up front that this interview is loaded with spoilers for the TV show Disclaimer. We also do talk about his take on Harry Potter, which is going to move to television soon, and how he thinks something like The Prisoner of Azkaban, which he directed and helmed as a 2-hour feature film, would do as a full season of television, and also just his insights into the film industry right now, and why he shifted over to TV and if he'd ever go back, and some of the technical aspects of filming with his brilliant cinematographer Chivo. So there's plenty of great stuff in here from Cuarón to get into if you just enjoy his type of filmmaking and his method of storytelling. So I would advise you guys to check out Disclaimer. It's a really good show if you have Apple TV Plus. But in the meantime, here is Alfonso Cuarón on the ReelBlend podcast on behalf of Disclaimer and his filmography up to this point. Alfonso, we are enormous fans of your work. We love anytime we get any project that you get to do. I want to know, now that you've tried it, what did you like the most about long form episodic storytelling? And maybe what's something that you found out that you didn't really like that much about it?
What I really enjoy is how you can develop story and character. Mm-hmm. You can really delve deep into them. You can also engage audiences in a completely different way. Yeah, because you can play more with their expectation, and I enjoy that. But the whole thing about developing character and narrative. Now, what I didn't like is that it's like doing 3.5 movies back to back. And also I don't have the methodology and I don't know the methodology how to make television. So I approach this as a film. So it took for a long, long time.
Gotcha.
Can I follow up then and ask you, are there any of your cinematic stories that looking back, you look at them and go, with 7 episodes, I could have done a lot with that?
No, because you know what? Each one of those were constructed in a completely different way. Something I enjoy of cinema, on the other hand, is it's a form in which you have to be very concrete. You have to be able to create to connect two ideas that make implicit many other things. It's like the opening of the Rear Window, that in one shot you are telling a whole story.
Well, then let me ask you, because, and this is just completely shifting gears, we are about to get the multi-episode version of Prisoner of Azkaban. Is that going to work as a multi-part story? Because we're getting it whether we like it or not.
Look, it's going to be a completely different experience. It's not Azkaban, it's the whole Potter thing. It's going to be a completely different experience, because what you can do by doing it as a series is that you can do a more faithful adaptation of the book. Not missing any single beat. Now, is that good for a cinematic form? No. That it could work on television? Probably. But probably as a cinematic form, it wouldn't. Yeah. And I think that's something that Steve Kloves, the writer of the Potter saga, did very well, is to be able to condense the books into a film length, just kind of brewing out of that the essential.
Alfonso, everyone's going to come out of episode 7 of Disclaimer discussing the kitchen table scene, and no matter how good you think Cate Blanchett and Kevin Kline are coming into this series, they're still not prepared for how effective that scene is. I'm just curious how many times Cate had to go through it, ways that maybe she refined her performance. And I'm curious, was she able to see Layla's performance before she told the story of what happened?
No, actually, we shot that scene before we shot the scenes of Layla.
Wow.
Yeah, she shot those scenes before. She was but Cate was very involved about, from the get-go, the very early on, the decisions of how we were going to shoot those scenes. Cate was uber involved in every single bit of the process. I mean, she's, if you see her credit as a producer, is that she's a real producer. It's not a vanity or a cosmetic credit.
Right.
That kitchen scene actually was scripted, in which you would be just some moments in the kitchen, and then you will go into the flashbacks. But Cate suggested that we would shoot the whole kitchen scene as if it's just one single scene. And that was priceless. I mean, because then it was, rather than to be creating moments based upon screenplay choices, it was about creating a real moment and then editorially finding the moments to go into the past.
I wondered about that. I wondered which one informed the other, actually.
No, and then it was really exhausting because, I mean, for the actors, because, it was such a long scene. I don't know how many pages, probably 30 pages. And there were different angles, different setups, camera setups. And so they have to be doing it over and over and over again. And it was, it's a very intense scene. It's emotionally very intense.
Wow. Alfonso, the truth reveal that came out of episode 7 really made me look at the previous 6 episodes differently, and made me think about certain moments and go, oh, I wonder if he was telling me something then that I didn't realize. I would imagine that, I don't know if hints is the right word, but if there are clues scattered throughout the entire series, it should be indicating to us what really happened in that hotel room. Do you know what the very first sign is? If I went back on episode 1, how early are you trying to tell us, hey, there's more to the story here and you should be paying closer attention?
It's pretty much from the very get-go, from the very beginning. I mean, the show begins with a warning in the voice of Christiana Manpour, warning everybody about what they are about to see. And from that moment on is what Kate and I, we were very careful was never to cheat, to make sure that you see, that if you watch the show for the second time without the prism of your judgment, you will see a completely different story. A story that in many ways, even if you cannot articulate through most of the show what really happened, you take a completely different stand.
Can I ask you really quickly? I have one of my best friends said in the first episode, the fact that Cate Blanchett's reaction to this book was vomiting, was being sick. That was, she said, as a woman, that was my first indication that something bad had happened.
Well, that's something that we were very careful to follow through certain behavioral traits that are common when you experience a certain kind of a past that you're hiding that surfaces and it triggers certain physical reactions. It's something that Kate was researching quite a lot, and is filled with, if you see Kate's character, Catherine, speaks very little, but nevertheless, her performance is saying so much. Mm-hmm. So if you see it for the second time, I think that you will see that she's screaming out the truth.
Wow. To that end, talking about saying very little, it struck me again because I just revisited the finale before this conversation, and your decision to take dialogue out of the rape scene essentially seemed like a really bold choice. Is there a narrative decision behind doing that?
Well, yes, we were discussing so much about how to. We were discussing about the research that Kate had done. Then I had an amazing consultant for this. She's an expert and a person who works with people who suffer this kind of traumas, and the way that the past would be recalled.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And also we didn't want to give pretty much the end of the previous episode finishes with Catherine saying, "It's time for my voice to be heard."
Yeah.
We didn't want to lose her voice, and we didn't want to give voice to the other characters. By the way, sorry, one question is this: I don't know when you're going to be airing this. Just I'm worried about people who had not seen the.
No, don't worry. We will make sure to hold it until long after.
Okay.
And everything will be prefaced.
I've been so going around the bushes with our conversation. Then I can. Okay.
You can talk openly
myself, and we can have a conversation about.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you,
Alfonso. Again, as I said at the beginning, we deeply admire you as a filmmaker, and I honestly think that you're a technical wizard. And I want to just go back a couple episodes to the scene where you finally stage the drowning, Jonathan's drowning, and I legitimately during the moments of it felt myself holding my own breath and kind of kicking my legs to try to stay up and tread water myself. Can you just talk about the obstacles that came with filming that sequence and how you wanted to kind of immerse the audience as best as you could in the feeling of help's not coming?
Yeah, I mean, first of all of that section, it comes out of a book written by Jonathan's mother, Nancy, and that she was not present there. So everything that you see is springing out of her imagination, in which she is romanticizing her son. and she's turning her son into someone, because maybe she knows very well who her son really is, but she's turning her son into this naive romantic figure, a romantic and heroic figure. So it was important to experience like the loss of that hero.
Yeah.
And we shot, it was a bit of a complicated shoot, because we shot all the beach scenes we shot in Italy. But then to do the open sea, you cannot have a 5-year-old in a little dinghy,
right,
floating in the midst of big waves.
Right.
So we had to do that, to create that in a safe environment. So we have to shoot that in South Africa in a tank.
Oh, wow.
A film tank, and then incorporate Italy into that, in the environment of this tank.
Wow.
It's a combination of different things. Yeah.
It edited together seamlessly. I had no idea.
Well, I'm very happy. Our editor is going to be very happy to hear you.
Did Chivo have to match the lighting then?
Well, that was the biggest problem, because and what was one of the decisions of shooting in South Africa, because Chivo, I'm glad you're mentioning that, because there's a very strict light continuity. Because we're going between the beach and what is happening in open sea.
Yeah.
And it needed to match exactly the same light. And so first of all, because of the season, our light had already changed in the northern hemisphere. So we had to go to the southern hemisphere.
That's
amazing. Match Chivo's light.
I love that. That's great.
Incredible.
Great.
Alfonso, you don't know this, but you were our very first guest we ever had on this show for Roma. And you don't realize it, but in a big way, you really did help make our show what it is. You gave us a legitimacy that allowed us to continue on and book some other amazing filmmakers. But we always go back to you, and we always talk about the fact that you were the one that gave us our first shot. So in the spirit of that, I would love to ask, who was the first big person to really give you a shot and help you become the filmmaker you are today?
I have to say that it was probably Sidney Pollack.
Wow, really?
And
wow.
And Steve Golin. I mean, I have done films in one film in Mexico, and I have done some TV shows. It was like short films for TV. But my first break in the US was an anthology of noir short films that Sidney Pollack was producing for television with Steve Golin and another amazing producer, and Bill Herberg. And they gave me my break to do one of them. Wow. I mean, before that, in Mexico, I had my breaks to do, to shoot my first TV things. And then, I did my first film, but pretty much in the US, Sidney Pollack, Steve Golin, and Bill Herberg were the ones that gave my break. They gave me my break.
Wow, that's a great answer.
It was it's like that. And you know what? It is through the time you have mentors through different periods of your life that they help you to springboard into the next into your next period of life. And then if you're lucky, you find other people.
Wow. Alfonso, I want to ask a big picture sort of question, because you talk about developing these characters from the very beginning with Kate, but what I'm fascinated with, because this show talks so much about narrators and how much faith we have in the people who are telling us the story. How often do you think about the type of emotional baggage that an audience brings to your project just because you've cast someone like Kate Blanchett?
Well, it's all the elements, but it's all the elements, and that is the interesting thing, and that's something I was very intrigued. I want to explore with Disclaimer, because is your casting, your casting choices, but the use of everything else around, the way that in which you employ narrative, the way in which the cinematic language that you employ, the use of music, in this case, the use of the different narrators, all of that are having an effect in the audience. Because here, the most important thing was, because the film basically, or the show is basically composing 4 different narratives. You know, one is and 3 of those, they have a voiceover, a narrator.
Right.
One is in first person, Kevin Kline is telling his story. Another one is in second person, that is the Kate Blanchett narrative, Catherine, in which is the you, and you're observing her from the distance. Then there's the him, the third person, that is everything in the world around Catherine's life, meaning her family and her co-workers. And then there's the narrative that takes place in the book. But the most important narrative of all is the 5th narrative. That is the narrative that the audiences is creating with their own judgments as they see the film. And then the confrontation of those narratives and judgments to the reality, the truth that we present at the end of the show. And again, if you see the show for the second time, you realize without your judgment, that is a completely different show.
Right.
It's a story of a woman who's trying to articulate a truth that happened many years back and is very difficult to articulate. But nobody let her talk.
Right.
Including the audience that is shutting her up with their own judgments.
Right. Right. And her own family that jumps to conclusions. You know, they jump to immediate conclusions.
If you see the show again, she's always trying to say, okay, let me try to explain. Let me tell you. Wow. And he's always interrupted.
Wow.
That scene at the end between Sasha and Kevin Kline in the elevator, I felt like Kevin was talking to me when he said, why didn't you? It made me question, why didn't I? Why didn't I give her a chance to explain?
At that moment, we're embodying Robert, because he's that scene in the elevator, and then later on when Kate is talking to him in the waiting room, that is telling Robert why he cannot forgive him, because he found it easier to accept that she was raped than that she could have pleasure with someone else.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to get you out of here, ironically, with a question about endings, because I think one of the most difficult things a storyteller can do is know when and how to end a story. You have to figure that out 7 times. How did you decide where each break in the story was going to go and how you were going to end each chapter of this story?
You know, that was very organic, because I wrote the whole thing from beginning to end. And then I was just going through the natural kind of dramatic and plot movements, because any story that you do, any film, any story has different kind of narrative movements. And it was about identifying them. And pretty much that was the end of a chapter. And then you would adapt a little bit just to build up to that moment, you know. But the moments were already there in the overall of the story. I think it's the same with any other one. The difference is that perhaps, and it's a bit different from a lot of other TV shows, that disclaimer is based upon an emotional accumulation more than the typical cliffhanger. You know, obviously there are cliffhangers, but they are more related with the emotional involvement of the audience, the characters, and with the audience in many ways is thirsty to confirm that he's right with he or she is right with their judgments.
Yeah, exactly. Alfonso, selfishly, I hope we don't have to wait 6 more years for the next project from you.
Okay, I hope it doesn't take that long as well. Believe me, but it seems to be the rhythm, unfortunately. I want to change that. Otherwise, look, I don't have many other projects to do. Just have one or two, and then...
Well, you can come on the show anytime. You don't have to wait for a project. You can just come on and chat with us.
Well, I'm very happy to go and chat. Now I'm a partner in crime because like you said that...
You're a founding father.
Yes, you are. The patron saint of ReelBlend.
You made me feel so old with that.
It's a pleasure, Alfonso. Good seeing you again.
Thank
Congratulations.
You, sir. Well, thank you, guys.
All right, take care now.
That was awesome. Thank you.
We definitely want to thank our friends at Apple TV Plus and, of course, the great Alfonso Cuarón for returning to the show. I actually got kind of choked up at the end of that when he talked to us about being one of our first guests and the impact that he has had on this show. I'm glad that Jake sort of broached that topic with him and mentioned it to him, because Alfonso is always going to be this pillar in the history of the ReelBlend community. Again, to sort of recommend disclaimer, it's crazy that a show like this, which is essentially a tentpole for someone as brilliant and talented as Cate Blanchett, can just go to a streaming service. But this is really where we're at in the year 2024, that these fantastic dramas written and directed by Alfonso Cuarón, starring someone like Cate Blanchett, Kevin Kline, Sacha Baron Cohen, Leslie Manville, is just something that's available on streaming services. You would assume be a 2-hour feature film. But it's a really, really interesting and well-told story about a woman who has an affair with a young man in the past, Cate Blanchett's character, and then burying that secret for as long as she can until it eventually resurfaces. And I won't give you the reasons why it's resurfacing. And I also don't even want to talk about like the impact that it has on her professional life and her personal life, because that's the joy of watching Disclaimer sort of unfold. You get hooked into this story of this mystery and whose version of the truth should we believe, which one sounds right, which one feels right. There's a lot of commentary about narrators and how we get information from certain places and what can be believed and what can't be believed. And there's definitely deeper conversations to be had after you see Disclaimer about our reliance on technology and the way that we just sort of believe certain things that get put in front of us when someone's different perspective can give you a new way to look at what is very clearly a fact. In this case, it happens to deal with photographs. And when you see a still photograph, how the immediate assumption of what you're seeing in the still photograph can be translated completely differently when you have a different backstory. And Alfonso, I think, has a really, really great way of pulling the rug out from underneath us multiple times throughout the course of Disclaimer for us to completely understand what's going on. And by the time you get to the finale, it's as he says, the thing, if you go back and rewatch it a second time, it's a completely different show. And I love stories that are like that. And I love Alfonso's storytelling in general. There are long passages of time that are set in the past in this story in Italy, and then he brings it through to the current day and finds ways to connect the both of them together. And it's really, really fantastic. And Cate Blanchett's amazing in it. Kevin Kline is unbelievably good in it. And I just love Alfonso, so I'm happy to have him on the show. Thank you for tuning in for this Friday episode. I'll let you guys know that we have plenty of jam-packed shows that are coming through the rest of November. We're going to have Thanksgiving to get through, obviously, but then, heading into December, we've got a lot of awards contenders. We have big shows coming up like Gladiator 2 and Wicked to discuss on the movie podcast. We have Nosferatu that's coming that we're going to want to review as well, too. So plenty of great films to get into. We'll continue to track the awards race. We'll continue to preview 2025. A lot of great stuff here on ReelBlend. You're going to want to hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Let a good movie-loving friend or family member know about the show as we continue to grow. I did see some comments underneath some recent episodes where people were like, hey, I'm new to the channel, new to the podcast. Love what you guys are doing. So we're always happy to welcome new members to the ReelBlend family. And thank you guys again for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the Alfonso Cuarón conversation. Go back through, listen to some of our archived episodes, and we'll be back with a brand new episode next week. So keep it locked here.